Vegas, baby fans. What's up? That was a shout out to my brother. What's up, Tennessee? Um, so today I was supposed to have a guest, but you know what? I'm moving things around because it's my show and I can do whatever I want. First of all, I'm gonna bitch for a second. This toilet paper situation is really getting on my nerves. Okay, the stores are partly to blame. When this started to happen, Walmart and all the stores should have where you can only buy so much because it's not fair to people like me who aren't freaking out and who aren't going to buy all the toilet paper off the shelves. So when I go to buy my regular every couple weeks toilet paper, there's nothing there. I had to pay $8 for 4 rolls today. I buy Baby Soft or Angel Soft or whatever it is. It's in a green package, and I can get 12 rolls for $6.50 at Walmart. I'm pissed. And this lady told me she went to Walmart yesterday, and the truck comes every Tuesday, and she said the lady told her by the end of the day everything was gone. What the hell? The store should limit what people. I'm sorry if you're one of the people that went and bought a shit ton. Shame on you, because it's not fair to everybody else. And the store should step up and say, no, you can only buy so much. It's not fair that somebody has 6 months in their garage and I've got 1 week. That means I'll probably get the damn thing. If you know me, you know that's how it's going to work. Although the bad juju really didn't follow me to Vegas, so things have been okay. I can't really complain. The Lynn stuff hasn't happened all that much here, so hasn't made its way, but it could be following me. It could finally find me. It just upsets me that people, and then 45 goes on TV last night, and I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the P word, but I am just going to mention this, and I didn't watch it, but I saw the highlights and I read about it, and I hear he gave misinformation, and then the White House had to walk it all back. See, this is the kind of stuff. I'm sorry. Everybody knows I despise the man, but right now he should be our leader and he should stand up and be a man and the president and try to calm people down, and he's not doing that. He's not doing that at all. And all he cares about is getting reelected and the market. We want the market to go up. Yes, we don't want a recession, but it's already here. Too late. It's here, people. Believe it or not, want to believe it or not, it's here. And he needs to settle everybody down. That's the problem. And that's part of his job, and he doesn't understand that. So that's what really bothers me. And I would be saying that if it were Obama, Bush, Clinton, Reagan, Bush Sr., it wouldn't matter. I would say the same thing. It doesn't matter at this point who's in the White House. Whoever it is needs to calm this country down and he's not doing that. So it's just, I don't know. I just, all right, I'm done ranting. All right, no more. I'm sure most people feel the same way I do. I mean, it's just, I don't know, this whole thing. And then my family, we're supposed to go to Ireland in 2 months in May. Some people have already dropped out of the trip, and our cousins from Ireland have said they're starting to close things down. So who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. You know what? If it doesn't happen in May for me, it probably's not going to happen because I can't put it off till next year because my son's getting married. So please. Anyways, so because I was all worked up after the store, and then this lady was rude as shit in the store, and it's like, Then I'm laughing with people. We're all laughing about the toilet paper and stuff, and so I found people who agreed with me. They're like, I know, I agree with you, but what are we gonna do? And I said, yeah, you're right. So I'm okay. The sun was out, and now it's getting real cloudy. We're supposed to have a lot of rain this afternoon, so we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. So today I thought I would continue the journey a little bit because some people, I see my viewership went up when I talk about our lives and our journey. And that's kind of cool, actually, because that means people care and want to know more and hear about it. And so yesterday I talked about the kidney transplant. Today I thought I'd talk about another pretty intense time because of the 16 years Bill was sick, we almost lost him at the kidney transplant, before the kidney transplant, and then a second time. Um, we almost lost him. We almost lost him three times throughout this thing, where we actually he was, we thought he might have passed away. And he went in for, it was in the early 2000s, because all the parent, my mother-in-law was still alive and my father was still alive, so I know it was before 2003. I think it was like 2002, 2001. Bill had another brain surgery, and to remove another lesion on his brain stem. And, as always, Dr. M would say before the surgery, I don't know how many more we can do of these, because, they have to put his head in a vise. They put their head in a vise and then they screw it so it doesn't move when they're in surgery, because they're working on the back of the head. Well, he told us at one point, he said, we're afraid that if we keep putting his head in the vise, because of all the scar tissue and all the things inside, we're going to crush his skull. So they were getting worried about that too. They're like, we just don't know how many. And I would think that if it were the early 2000s, says he had 12 brain surgeries, proper brain surgeries. And so I want to say this was probably his eighth, maybe, because he probably had a few more. He did have a few more after that. So maybe his seventh or eighth brain surgery. And after the brain surgery, Dr. M always walked down the hall, came right to me, and he was shaking his head. That man is a miracle. I don't even know what to say about him. He keeps having these surgeries, and he comes out like a champ. He goes, I've never seen anything like it in my life. So he's like, he is an incredible human being, and coming from a doctor, and so he was recovering in the hospital. He had to stay for a couple days. Usually only stayed a couple days, and then he went home. And they had a catheter in him, and because when you get out of surgery, the first day or stuff. So, and then when they took the catheter out the second day after the surgery, I remember Bill thinking, he said to me, God, that hurt. And it never hurts. And I said, really? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's weird. So, whatever. So, we were supposed to get out the next day. He was going to go home the next day. Everything was looking great. And then he was like, he was starting to act a little weird that night, but I didn't think anything of it, and we've been through so much. Bill's been through so much. I figured whatever. So I had to go home. Rush hour was over, so I drove home. And the next day, it was about, gosh, I want to say about 4 a.m. I get a call from Bill. I'm like, I pick up the phone. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I need to take a shower, and I need to do it now because my gym teacher told me to. And I said, excuse me? I said, what are you messing with me? What are you doing? It's 4 a.m. I said, I got to run to work in a little while and then come down and get you out of the hospital. What's going on? And he's like, no, I do. And I'm like, okay. And he kept talking about he had to take a shower. It was gym class. He took gym and this and that. And I'm like, all right. I said, hang up the phone and push the nurse's button and tell them this. And he's like, okay. Well, then I'm worrying and I'm worrying and I'm worrying. And then I called him back I didn't go back to sleep. It was about 5:30. And I called him back and he was making no sense. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm like, okay, I'm not messing around. So I called my doctor, Dr. M, the neurologist, and of course it went to the answering service because it was like between 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. And the answering service says, may I have your message? I said, yes, my husband is in the hospital, blah, 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 and he's acting weird, but there's something wrong. And he's like, ma'am, your husband's in the hospital. Why are you calling the emergency service for Dr. M if he's in the hospital already? I said, listen, there's something wrong with my husband. And clearly the nurses are not picking up on it. And he's like, well, I can't page him for that. And I said, oh, really? And he's like, yes. I said, okay, I'm just going to tell you something right now. When Dr. M finds out that I called and you wouldn't page him for me, I guarantee you are going to get in trouble because we are a special patient. We're not just a in and out one time thing with the doctor. We've been here since 1992 and he's had these many surgeries. He's like, oh, okay, ma'am, but I said, okay, fine. But remember, when I see him today, I'm going to keep calling him. And when I get a hold of him, you will guaranteed be hands down in trouble if you do not page him right now. The guy's like, okay. So I didn't think he paged him. Well, he must have gotten off the phone and started thinking about it, and he did page him. And he called me. And he's like, what's going on? I said, I told him all this. He's like, okay, let me get a hold of the nurses. I said, well, I'm coming down soon. He's like, okay. Take your time and get down here. I will make sure he's okay. So, I get dressed, I shower, I do all my stuff, I get down there. Well, it's a middle of rush hour, so it took a while to get down there. Remember, he's down in Chicago, I'm by the Wisconsin border. And so I finally get down there, and I remember walking through walking by the nurse's station, and a couple of them just gave me a look, and I'm like, and I looked in the room he was in when I left him, and he wasn't there that night. And I said, where's Bill? And they said, we moved him. He's over here. And I said, okay. And I go into the room, and he was so disoriented. He was so upset. And I said to him, are you okay? And he's like, I don't know what's going on. They're taking a bunch of tests. They think I have an infection. I said, what? And then he's like, and I hurt myself. And I look on the side of his body was this huge long bruise. Turns out he fell out of bed. They did not have his gates up. And because he was disoriented, he fell out of bed. He just had brain surgery 3 days earlier. I was like, what the shit? I yelled that real loud. Now I'm in Bill's room, and everybody heard it because this is in the neurological floor. Part of it's ICU and part of it's not. And Bill was now moving towards ICU. And the nurses, I went out and I said, I need to see the doctor, and I need to see the doctor now. And they're like, well, he's in surgery. I said, what's going on with my husband? And they're like, well, we're going to take him for a MRI and this and that. And they came and got him, and then they took him. And I said, all right. And then somebody higher up came, and then a psychiatrist came. This is my favorite part. Bill comes back from the MRI, and we're sitting there, and Bill's like, he's like, I don't know what's going on. I said, I don't either, and they're not telling us anything, right? And we could tell. And Bill had a fever. They're like, he's got a fever, and his fever was getting higher. And I'm like, what the fuck? And they're like, we're going to move your husband to another room. So now they're moving him to the ICU portion of the neurological floor. And I'm like, okay, there's a problem. So the psychiatrist comes in, and he's talking to us. And he's taught, blah, 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 blah. And I said, who do you think you're talking to, sir? We have been dealing this now. It had been well over 10 years that Bill had this thing. I said, we're not a bunch of, freaking out for no reason. He's got a fever. He fell out of bed. I said, there's going to be a lawsuit here. There is really going to be a problem. And I want to see Dr. M, and I want to see him as soon as he gets out of surgery. I mean, I was yelling at this psychiatrist. I was yelling at the nurses. And then finally, I didn't recognize any of the nurses the day that our regular nurses must have been off. Well, then I finally see one, and she's like, all right, calm down, Lynn. And I said, he's in surgery. He's going to come see you afterwards. I go, I don't want anybody touching him. I want everybody out of here until I know what's going on. So I am just, living. Bill's in ICU now. His fever's going up. I got rid of the psychiatrist. Who the fuck do you think you're talking to, asshole? Get out of here. Because now they're afraid. Because they know he fell out of bed because they didn't put the things up, and there's something wrong. And I could start to see the faces. I was looking at all the faces as I was waiting for Dr. M to come out of surgery. And I'm like, there's something wrong here. I knew it. I'm in my gut. And I don't want to say anything to Bill. So he was sleeping in and out. Finally, Dr. M comes in, and I stand up. He's like, I know. I said, what the? And I was just, and he's like, I know, and I know. You are absolutely 100% right. I said, why do I have to call you at 6 a.m. to tell you there's something wrong with my husband? And then he's got this huge bruise. He's like, it has been addressed. Trust me. He said, I have had a very long conversation with the night nurses and the nurses on now. And I said, well, that's really great, but what's wrong with my husband, and why was he ignored? And he's like, I know, Lynn. And he's like, we have to talk. So he finally calmed me down. And he's like, we think Bill has a staph infection. And I said, what? And he's like, yeah. And we think it's in the brain. And now I remember what brain surgery this was. It was not, I take that back, it was not for the brain stem. He did not have a lesion that time. He had a shunt in his head that I told you many shows ago that ran into the cavity right here, so that the brain flow would naturally flow. After surgeries, you have to have them. So his was in for so long, and it kinked. So that's what we were in surgery for. They put a new shunt in. And when they went to do that, that's the thing about surgeries, hospitals. They clean as much as they can, but they can't get every germ, you know it. And that's why so many surgeries for people, besides the anesthesia, is a problem because you're opening yourself up for these germs. Well, it happened. And he's like, I'm really afraid he's got a staph infection in there. And we have got to figure out, because of his kidney transplant, he can only do certain antibiotics. He can't just do the automatic one they knew because they said it's bad for kidney. And I'm like, great. So he's like, just let us work on this. Okay, fine. So Bill's in and out that day and not feeling good. The fever's going up, and they're trying to give him whatever they can. So they're giving him a low grade type of antibiotic at this point, but they're testing somewhere in the hospital to figure out what would be the best antibiotic to fight this staph infection. I'm like, all right. Next day, I get back to the hospital. As soon as I got there, Dr. Margadesian was paged, and he came into my room. And I said, what is going on? He looks terrible. And he's like, he's definitely got a staph infection, and it's in the brain. And we still have not found the right drug yet. We are working with other facilities. We are working with National Institute of Health to try to figure out what would be the best antibiotic. He's like, and when Dr. M said this to me, I knew we were screwed. He said, I need you to keep talking to him. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, because he's, Bill was really down, and he had the fever, and he wasn't feeling good. He's sick as shit. And he's like, you got to keep talking to him. Keep talking to him. Don't let him think this is it. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I knew, okay, this is bad, right? So he's like, just you do that. Stay here. Talk to him. Let him sleep a little bit, but talk to him. Up, up, up. We want to be positive here, Lynn. And I went outside. So finally, we went outside of the room. We were talking, and I said, "You're worried, aren't you?" And he said, "I am very worried." He's like, "This is bad." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So I'm like, "Okay." So I get in the room and I do my Lynn shtick as long as I could. And finally, at the end of the day, they came in. No, it was the following day. So it was the third day. The morning, I went back to the hospital, and it was a Sunday now. And I went in, and Dr. M was there, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is not good. If he's here on a Sunday, and he's like, I was waiting for you. We found an antibiotic that we think is going to work. So they started pumping him with it. And they said, we have a couple antibiotics, and we think this is going to fight it. And I'm like, all right. So, but he's like, but you gotta, um, and my son came down with me that day because I needed help. Michael came down with me to talk to him. So we were talking to him. We had the TV on. We were trying to, just be. I think the Bears game was on. I'm almost sure we watched a Bears game there, and we were trying to keep him awake. They wanted to, at this point, now they wanted him awake as long as we could keep him awake. So we were having to do that. And this went on, and then now they're pumping him with the antibiotics, and he's sick as shit. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? Are we going to lose him? His mother was freaking. He was sick, but they didn't want a lot of people in the room because of the infection. So not everybody could come visit him. So then, after a couple more days, we were talking, the doctors and me, and he's like, listen, this is what's going to happen. He's like, he's going to have to be on antibiotics every 6 hours. There was 3 different antibiotics. He's like, and it's going to have to be done for a month for every 6 hours. Now, we can leave him here, and they were going to do it. They had to do it intravenously. One was by mouth, but the other 2 were through an IV bag. And he's like, they had put a port in, so he had a port, and into his arm now, a portable port. He goes, now we have choices. Most people, he goes, Anybody other than you two, I wouldn't even give them this choice. But because it's you two, and I know you, Lynn, you are the most diligent woman I've ever met. You are so on top of this. You know everything. He said, you knew before we knew there was a problem days ago. And I said, yeah, I'm still pissed about that. He goes, me too. And he's like, so this is what we're thinking. If we taught you how to do the IVs every 6 hours, we're thinking about letting you go home with Bill. You're going to have a nurse come in and help you and blah, 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 blah. But otherwise, he's going to have to stay here for the next 4 weeks. And as we know, the hospital is probably not the safest for him. And we're thinking maybe getting him home, get him in his atmosphere, and you take care of him. And he's like, and believe me, some of the doctors did not agree with me. We had this discussion, he said, and a few of Dr. H and Dr. and me, meaning Dr. M, they both agreed, let Lynn take him home. They felt they had a better shot of getting this thing, getting Bill through this. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So they said then it was arranged. Okay, so they had all the antibiotics ordered, um, all everything, and they're like, this is what we want to give them, and we're going to do this for 4 weeks, every 6 hours. I said, okay. So we finally get Bill home, get him in the house, which was not easy. I'm almost sure Tom probably had to carry him up the stairs with me because he was so weak, and he's sick as shit, and he looked terrible, and he was skinny as shit. And so we get him home, and then the nurse comes and trains me on everything, and she's like, I'll be back in a day or two to make sure. So fortunately, one of the good things was I worked literally not even 10 minutes from home. I was at Baxter, but I was in the Round Lake Baxter. So, and it was right down the street from my home. So that was a good thing. So I'm like, okay. So it was like, all right, so every 6 hours. So his mother came the first week because I said, I got to go to work for some of this, and she's like, of course. So she stayed with them, fed them, during the day. And then I'd come home at lunch, did the IV, went back to work, came home and then at dinner time was the next one. And then we had to wake up in the middle of the night to do another one. I'd do one first thing in the morning, go off to work. Marilyn watched them. And this went on and on. And there were some things that had happened at home. I'm not going to go into that, but he was sick. He was very sick. Nobody, and I remember this. I was talking to my one brother called me. Now we're home, and it was a week later, and my one brother Dale called me to see how things were going, and it was a Sunday, and the Bears had played, and pretty sure they won or something. I don't know. I don't even remember. I don't think I watched it which it was probably on, but I was so busy. And he said he's trying to cheer me up, and I think he could tell I was really down, and he's like, oh man, now I know it's bad. And I go, why? And he goes, because you don't care about the Bears. You didn't say a word about them. I said, no. And he's like, that's the first time in my life I've ever heard you say you don't care about the Bears. And I said, well, my husband's sick. So they all knew. The family, word got out, and the family's like, uh-oh. So they would try to, some of them come, my dad came, and Grandma Pat came once to try to see Bill, and they had to stay out of the room, but they could see him and wave to him and talk to him, because people couldn't get near him too much. So it was really me, Marilyn, and Michael that were allowed to be near him. And Michael wasn't allowed to because we had to wash our hands. We had to be very clean, kind of like now. So this went on for 4 weeks, every single day, every 6 hours, IV in, and then one by the mouth. And slowly but surely, he started to get better and better. And then finally, and I remember the home care nurse came. It was probably close to the 4th week now, and Bill was definitely on the mend. I was like, all of a sudden, there was just one day, and the next day he was better, and it must have just really kicked in. And she says to me, I got to tell you, she hadn't been there for about a good week, because I was like, I don't need you to come. I'm fine. She's like, okay, you need me, you call me. So the drugs were being shipped to her house all the time because they had to be kept in the refrigerator. So it was just all of that. And finally she says to me, I got to tell you something. When they let you bring your husband home with a staph infection in his brain, and I saw your husband, I thought to myself, what is that hospital doing? How irresponsible. That man is never going to leave this bed. And she's like, now look at him. She goes, she was bewildered. She's like, I'm impressed. I'm bewildered. I don't even know what to think. And I said, well, thank you. And she's like, you are something else. I said, well, it's both of us, you know. So then we had to load Bill into the car and go downtown for a full, see how he was doing. They did the panel, blood, this, that. And she had been taking blood too, having it tested, da, da, da. So we went down and, they decided they wanted to do 2 more weeks because they're like, you know what? He was definitely on the mend, but they were like, we can't take any chances. So we had to do an additional 2 weeks. So it was 8 weeks, every 6 hours of antibiotics. But do you know that that Bill, he made it. And all of a sudden, and when the nurse came back to clean us out when it was all done and take all the rest of the supplies that we didn't use, she's like, I never in a million years would have thought you would be sitting in the chair talking to me like you are, Bill. And he's like, well, it's her. And I said, no, it's you. You know, so we're both saying each other, but we did it. We freaking did it. It was exhausting. I said to Bill, it was like having a newborn again because you're up in the middle of the night and we were watching, like, because it took about 30 minutes to get the antibiotic in. So we would always we were watching, oh my God, funny shows in the middle of the night on, you know, like TV Land and laughing, you know, like My Three Sons, remember? Da 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 da. My Three Sons. Um, so and I remember us laughing in the middle of the night. Just so we had a lot of interesting conversations those 8 weeks, and we got through it, and it was I Bill and I and his mother were just like, oh my God, and this one was bad. I was just like, and then Dr. M and Dr. H were like, okay, here here you go. And Dr. H said you weren't supposed to survive that, and you did. And you know, again, we didn't tell a lot of people. It was bad. Everybody knew it was bad, but no one really thought he was going to make it. And he made it, and he lived many, many more years because this is the early 2000s. It was either 2001 or 2002 that happened. And it was just, I don't know. Bill was an incredible human being. The strength that that man had was undeniable. I mean, you know, sure, I'm going to say that and I'm going to brag about him because I loved him and everything, but it really was. Again, now this is the second time the doctors were just like, you know, we don't know what to say. The coma and now this, and he's like, he's just an incredible human being, and they said, and he is, and the nurses and the doctors just loved us, and they really did say a lot of really good things to me. They would pull me aside and go, you know, they would tell me stories about how loved ones would just never supported their partners like they said you do, Lynn. They said we've never really seen anything quite like it, and you just never give up. You're just like, no, you just keep going. And I said, well, I love him, and of course I'm gonna keep going. He's my freaking husband. He's my best friend. He's the father to my son, and Bill and I did not talk about him dying very often. It was very, very few times. And that was one thing we really didn't allow in the conversation. So, you know, another one. And then, you know what, after that, we took some really awesome trips. I told you about the Wyoming trip. I'm going to tell you, I think, next, maybe in the next show, a bunch of the vacations we went on because we weren't sure how long he was going to be around. And we wanted to have as much fun as we could with Bill and the kids. And he was incredible. I don't know. You know, you hear these stories, you hear me talk, but you cannot imagine unless you were in those shoes and you saw the man in that bed. When I first took him home from the staph infection, I literally had to pick him up, and if I wanted to put him in a chair, put him in a chair. He was so weak he couldn't walk. And but I fattened him up. We got him to start eating again, and he survived, and he went on for a good 7, 8 more years. And so, you know what? It does. I'm not saying it works with everybody, but when you really want something and you fight hard for it, it does work because Bill didn't want to go yet. It wasn't his time. And he was like, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. And at the end of the journey, when I tell the story at the end, you'll know why, because I'll tell you some stuff that came up then in 2008 when he passed away. But yeah, it was, I look back on it and I think to myself, how the hell did I do all that? Of course, I was much younger. And, but we always tried to laugh because there were some mishaps that happened that I'm not going to go into. They were kind of personal that happened with Bill when he was homesick, but we always managed to laugh about it. And he even said to me once, I don't know why you keep doing this. And I said, because you're my husband and I love you. And he's like, I'm a lucky man. And I'm like, you know what? You are one lucky man. Because who wouldn't be lucky with Lynn? So that's the staph infection. I'm sure I left stuff out, but I gave you the most part. But he did survive, and it was a good thing, and people marveled at him, And I gotta say, my work was awesome, but I did go back and forth every day for those 8 weeks. I didn't take any extra time. I only went home at lunch, did it, and then went home. So I didn't. I was working and doing that. Didn't sleep a lot for those 8 weeks because I pretty much slept with one eye open, watching him all the time, and that's the truth. When Bill got sick, that's how I slept for 16 years, one eye open, one eye open. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed that journey. Um, I don't know. I think people like hearing it because it brings them back, and then they remember Bill because that smile. When people, even when he was sick, his mother would walk in the room, or my dad would come visit, or somebody would come visit, and he always smiled when they walked in the room. It didn't matter. He didn't give up. He did not give up, that little fart knocker. That's a little funny thing we say. We call each other fart knockers in the Hayden house. Harrington. Oh my God. I'm a Hayden. Well, Hayden, Harrington, Hayden. Anyways, all right, I'm done. Blah, 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 blah. So, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's see if I can leave you with a funny note. I already bitched about the toilet paper, so you were probably laughing about that. Anyways, I appreciate you guys listening, and keep on rocking and rolling. I want you to be nice to somebody. I want you to smile to somebody. You don't have to touch them, but if they need help, you can help them nowadays, especially. And please stop buying all the frickin' toilet paper. Man, I pee a lot, so I need a lot of toilet paper. So this is just not cool. I'm in my 60s and I pee a lot. It's just, so I'm telling you, stop it. I need toilet paper. Oh, I still don't understand it, but whatever. So I love you guys. Thanks for watching, as always. I hope you enjoy the journeys. And I will think about maybe there was one vacation that Bill worked really, really hard for. So I might tell you about that because he worked so hard when we went away on this one vacation. He would go to rehab. He used to go to rehab because his legs, as I told you, his arms and legs were now stuck like this. And his legs were bent and his hands were like this. And he was always in pain. But he did something pretty special for the family and ended up getting a standing ovation in Cancun. And that's all I'm going to tell you. That's a little teaser. Yeah, nice something. Means you got to come back for more. Uh-oh. Allergies. Remember how I yell that out? So thank you again. I love y'all. I mean, for the support, I appreciate it. And keep on rocking and rolling. And don't forget to watch the next Vegas baby show starring me, Lynn. I love ya and rock and roll, baby. See you later. Alligator.